Tonight, our first speaker, Valerie M. Richey. Left or right or wrong? Left or right or wrong? Valerie M. Richey.
Left or right? What? Left or right? Choose. Contest master, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. That was the beginning of a conversation. A conversation that forever changed my life. That was the day that I first began to learn the lesson that it's not possible to make a wrong decision. Now, this was a shocking revelation for me, to really get that it's not possible to make a wrong choice. Now, here's how that lesson unfolded for me. Left or right? That was the question posed to me as the dust-covered Jeep rolled to a stop in the middle of the highway at the edge of the Sonoran Desert. In the driver's seat next to me is Lench Archuleta, a Native American shaman, a medicine man of sorts, the man who I'm going to be spending the next week in the desert with. And there he sits, gently tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, patiently waiting for me to choose, left or right. Oh wow, he's serious. Well, I look to the left, and all I see is a paved road that wanders off into the desert. I look to the right, and all I see is a paved road that wanders off into the desert. How on earth am I going to make this decision? Well, at that point, my mind starts racing. A million questions come to it. Questions like, well, why do I have to decide? He's been here before, can't he make this choice? Well, what if I choose left and he really wanted to go right? Or what if I choose right and there's something really awesome to the left that we're going to miss out on? What is he thinking as I sit here in silence for so long? Well, it became very clear to me that he was not going to move that Jeep until I made a choice. So in a moment of desperation and uncertainty, I finally yelled, right! Just turn right. And slowly, that Jeep starts to go to the right. I breathe a sigh of relief. And then it hits me. This was a simple left-right question. But I had turned it into a question of right or wrong. All my life, I have always believed that there was one right answer, one optimal solution, and it was my job to figure out what that one right answer was. But in the desert, I didn't know what was to the left any more than I knew what was to the right. How could I possibly make that decision and know what choice is the right choice? Well, we're headed off to the right, and in what I hope is the right direction. And that nice paved road, well, it eventually turned into a dirt road. And next thing I know, both sides of that dirt road are lined with barbed wire fences. And posted all over those barbed wire fences are no trespassing signs. Way to go, Val. Your first day in the desert, and you've made a choice that has put you smack dab in the middle of government-owned property. You're going to jail. Well, thankfully, we did not wind up in jail that day. And instead, that dirt road eventually faded away. And next thing I know, we're actually driving through the open desert. And we're wandering around the cacti, and we're wandering around the brush. And eventually, we get to the base of one of these mountainous ridges that have been off in the desert, off in the distance. We stop at the base of that mountain, and we get out of the Jeep. And Lynch walks me over to this mound of rocks, and he says to me, These rocks have been here for thousands of years. You are their first human experience. And I bend down and I pick up one of these rocks and I hold it in my hands. And in that moment, when I feel the warmth of this rock, I'm humbled. And then Lynch walks me over and he introduces me to a grandmother saguaro cactus, standing there in all her majesty. And he teaches me how to approach her. And I walk up to her and I touch her. And in that moment, she reveals her story to me. And I am so moved by her presence. And a thought comes to my mind. How could this possibly be a wrong choice? So a little later, I asked Lynch, what really was the purpose behind that left-right exercise in the middle of the highway? And Lynch looks at me and he says, left or right. The result is the same. Either will take you to a lesson or a teaching that is needed. I thought about that for a second. And then I said, really? Really? You mean to tell me that I had a knot the size of Texas in my stomach as we're stopped in the middle of the highway at the edge of the Sonoran Desert? And you're telling me that it just didn't matter? But then I really got what he was saying. And what he was telling me is that it's not possible to make a wrong decision. So what are the decisions in your life? Those that are rendering you paralyzed with fear? Well, I invite you to step into the driver's seat of those choices and really get that it's not possible to make a wrong decision. Left or right, truly, all roads lead home. Thank you.
Please help me welcome Clarice R. Jones. What are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your life? Clarice R. Jones.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Good evening.
Good evening.
What are you doing with your life? Are you living your life to the fullest, smelling the roses along the way? Are during your final time or during your best time when you take certain times out of your life to tell your loved ones that you appreciate all that they do, that you love them, giving them a big hug. I am 87 years old and I live my life to the fullest, smelling the roses along the way. I have lived a fantastic, wonderful, blessed life. Born paralyzed. The doctor told my mother that she would have to give me a good education because I would not have the use of my arms and legs. My grandmother, who was a trained nurse, said, oh yes, she will. She had faith and belief in knowing that I would use my arms and legs. She immediately began to massage my muscles until I turned blue. This procedure helped me. When I was 5 years old, my mother enrolled me in a ballet dance school. I became a ballet dancer, dancing with Catherine Dunham, and Carmen Jones. My Carmen Jones troupe toured the United States and Canada and was disbanded in Houston, Texas, which is my home. I remain, and opened the first black dance school called the Rhodes School of Dance. Married and had 2 children, a daughter who is 63 years old, and a son who was 5 days old when he made his transition. This was quite a devastating time for us. We moved to Los Angeles, and there I became a dance specialist with the Los Angeles Recreation and Parks Department for 10 years. During that time, I continued my education and received my master's from the University of Southern California in special education. Went into teaching and taught special education, 4th grade mentor teacher, teaching teachers how to teach, which was very challenging, but most rewarding for 45 years. Retired and moved to Germany to live with my daughter, who is a chemistry supervisor in the government hospital. She was there 11 years, and I 8 years. We traveled extensively through Europe, which was quite a rewarding experience. Heidelberg Hospital closed, so therefore my daughter had to have a job. So we moved to Waynesville, Missouri. And she is the chemistry supervisor at the Fort Leonard Wood Hospital. I am a Golden Life member of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. A member of NAACP, a DTM member of Toastmasters, a religious science practitioner. I have had a wonderful life, and I enjoy being with others, which is truly a rewarding experience because you learn from others. I say yes to life, as life says yes to me. I live my life to the fullest, as I always maintain an attitude of gratitude. Tomorrow's promised to no one. I live my life to the fullest, smelling the roses along the way. What about you, Madam Toastmaster?
Our third speaker tonight, Matthew L. Prose, Journey from Silence. Journey from Silence, Matthew L. Prose.
By a show of hands, have you ever wondered if the words that you say really make a difference? I read in the blog recently, whether through advancements in communication or too many broken promises, that our words have been reduced to nothing more than just empty containers. I wanted to react to this because it contradicts my very passion in life. But instead, I gave it some thought. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, if the words that we say really don't matter, then would the stories and the experiences behind them be in vain? As I pondered on this further, I reminisced of stories from my past that connect a child, paralyzed at the thought of even talking to anyone. to a man with the desire to inspire others with my words. I remember a story when I was 5 years old on a school field trip and terrified because I was next. By the look on my face, you would have thought they were about to push me into the deep end without floaties. But in my little mind, it was worse. I was one person away in line from ordering a Happy Meal. My palms were sweating and my heart was beating. Out of my little blue polo shirt, I got out of the line and I found my private school principal. Mrs. Himmel, would you order my food for me? Please? With a warm smile, she obliged my request. Matthew, just this once, but next time you'll need to order for yourself. In my preteen years, I was stricken with a bad case of puberty. Pimples on my face, a wiry little body. I would just stand there tongue-tied, unable to squeak off a snappy comeback when my fellow classmates would make fun of me. And as far as being smooth with the ladies, yeah, not so much. Can anyone relate? Oh, come on, guys, get those hands up. You can relate. They were always whisked away by the words of some other guy, and I would find myself in the dreaded, platonic friend zone. But it all changed at the age of 15 during an evening meeting at church youth camp. In a defining moment, it was as if an angel of God had cut the cords that kept me silent. A little while later, the youth pastor asked if anyone wanted to share a few moments of their camp experience. There I was, 4th row, palms sweating, and my heart beating out of my too-tight American Eagle t-shirt. Without my consent, my feet go on automatic pilot and take me to the back of that line. I tapped on my youth pastor's wife's shoulder. Mrs. Himmel, is it too late to say something? With that same warm smile, she replied, Matthew, we've been waiting for you to say something a really long time now. To the surprise of many, I spoke in public for the very first time. And when I had finished, I floated back to my seat. I had found my purpose. And that was the night my future wife first noticed me. Smooth. Over the next few years, it became evident to me that this journey of mine from silence had fueled a desire within to inspire others on their journey. But little did I know how much it would cost to add value to my words. Would I be just another voice? Would they even listen to what I had to say? I learned that life smacks you in the face. For the past decade, I've had the privilege of teaching young adults in the church setting. And many times after class, I would sit there and rack my brain over the blank stares. Have you ever been there before? Putting your heart and soul into words that seemingly fall on deaf ears? When those frustrating moments would pass, I would press on with the belief that the words that were spoken in class would not return void. Years later, to hear those young people come up and say to me, Matt, thank you. Not just for the words that were said, but the example that was set behind them. It's moments like those that make what I do worth it. In September of 2011, I had a culminating moment with the value of my words. That night, my pastor asked me to give my first message. I'm sitting on the front row, palms sweating, and my heart beating out of my button-up dress shirt. I was about to go forward, and then I noticed a familiar person had sat down right next to me. I turned to her. Mrs. Himmel, would you order for me just one more time, please? And with that warm smile, she replied, Matthew, this time I think you're ready to order for yourself. I believe these stories validate my words and give me the opportunity to inspire shy people just like me. What is it then that causes our words to matter and make a difference in others? Ladies and gentlemen, when given the opportunity to speak, and no matter what's said, mere scripted words can never be enough. Our words are to be felt, experienced, and cause others to come alive by the stories of pain and passion within them. It's our integrity that speaks, depth that's found in hard places, and through joyful persistence, we inspire others to achieve greatness. After finishing this blog, I concluded that it can be true. Our words can be empty, but they can also hold such tremendous power. So let's make them count.
Differently abled. Differently abled, Shreya Gopal.
Isn't summer one of the most beautiful seasons of the year? The blooms are out, the sun is out, and water parks have open access to one and all. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Every summer, like clockwork, for 60 days, my sister and I were shipped off to my grandparents' place. No parental guidance! Of course, I'm kidding. We would be under the care of my grandparents and my aunt. My grandparents were responsible only for spoiling us. Every other day these summers, we would set a huge crate of mangoes in the porch, sit ourselves around it, and dive into the juicy, yellow, bright, peachy mangoes, letting them drip all over us, making a mess. All this while, my aunt would stand in the rafters and lovingly look at us. She did have to clean up that mess. When we were kids, we were copycats to my aunt. We would follow her around everywhere. If she were in the kitchen, we were there. If she were in the living room, we were there. If she were watching television, we were there. The best part about these summers was the den. On these hot, humid, sunny afternoons, we would spend time in the backyard. Now, my grandparents' house, the backyard had a huge canopy of trees, offset by rose bushes, jasmines, and all sorts of tropical flowers, spritzing their scent into the air. We would sit ourselves there and work on our favorite summer pastime, embroidery, needlework. What young girl wouldn't want to do needlework all summer long? You see, my aunt owns a boutique. She transforms these pale, marble-like, colorless pieces of cloth into exquisite forms of art. She uses colors like red, blue, green, and works motifs, designs, converting them into tops, dresses, even saris. So we would sit next to her, pick up scrap pieces of cloth and some leftover thread, and work our stitches. Every summer she would patiently patiently retaught us the same 3 stitches. The chain stitch, the back stitch, and my favorite, the French knots. I remember one summer working on a string of French knots, only to realize that I had sewn the cloth onto my skirt. I panicked. I waved her over. She calmly walked over, picked up a piece of scissors, and deftly cut me off. She had undone an hour's worth of work. 2 years ago, for my wedding, she gave me this beautiful sari. It took her 60 days of tireless work to transform this cloth into an exquisite piece of art. Any guesses on who got all the compliments? We were so enamored by her that we would spend the evenings with her. We would go shopping, running errands, and even just have a cup of coffee. All this while, we would hear strange whispers. People would be talking about us, staring at us. We never understood why. Ladies and gentlemen, one difference between all of us and my aunt is that she was born deaf and mute. Born in small-town India, with not many opportunities for a sign language school or a special school, she converted and generated a language of her own. This language is so ingrained in our minds that even today, when my mother speaks with us, she would sign. Bring me a cup of tea, or fetch me that bowl of water. As kids, this language was our secret communication. Is my aunt powerful beyond measure? Absolutely. Is she talented? Definitely. Is she disabled? No. Differently abled. The differently able, like my aunt, accept society despite its pride and prejudice. They aspire to success and achieve greatness we can only imagine. While going about life, we talk about the, overweight girl, bald man. We forget they have a different dimension. While mentally tearing apart people, we fail to realize that all they expect from us is compassion, respect, and acceptance. Are we disabled for failing to celebrate the diversity they bring to this world? And as my aunt would say,
Our fifth and final contestant this evening, David Evans. Happiness. Happiness, David Evans.
Please raise your hand if a person or a circumstance has made you unhappy. Has anything happened to anyone here? Tonight, I am going to tell you a secret. No person or circumstance has the power to make you unhappy. You have the power to choose your attitude under any set of circumstances. For most of my life, I did not know I had this power. As a matter of fact, I knew the opposite was true. I knew people and circumstances had the power to make me unhappy. It happened all the time. As a child, I was constantly reminded of how ugly and stupid I was. Starting in first grade, the other children told me not to come near them or touch them, because if I did, they would become a wart like me. I once had a teacher announce to the entire classroom, "David, I don't know what grade to give you. There is no grade lower than F." I had one bright spot in my life, and that was my mother. When I had a bad day, we would talk, and I would feel better. Then, on Easter Sunday morning, when I was only 10 years old, my mother died a horrible, painful death from neurofibromatosis. She spent the last 2 years of her life in agony. I went to my father looking for moral support, but all he said was, "Life is tough, and then you die." I want you to imagine, think back when you were 10 years old. Can you think back that far? And picture yourself having this genetic disorder that's causing tumors to grow all over your body, literally head to toe. And now, your mother dies from that same disorder. Can you feel my devastation? Probably the only reason I didn't kill myself, I wasn't smart enough to think about it. Like my mother, I have neurofibromatosis. Neurofibromatosis, or NF for short, is a genetic disorder. It causes tumors to grow anywhere in or on the body. It can also cause severe pain, deafness, blindness, cancer, and death. There's only one certainty with NF. It only becomes worse. Several years ago, it started to be painful when I used hairspray. Some individuals with NF have such great pain in their fingertips, they cannot touch anything. And that may be my future. However, I stand before you this evening a happy man. My mother died from NF at 38. My sister died from NF at 48. I have reached a great age of 60. I am thrilled to be here this evening. In addition, I have found the key to happiness. Happiness does not come from fame or fortune. Think of all the wealthy and famous people who have committed suicide or have ruined their lives through the use of alcohol and drugs. These people had it all and were not happy. Happiness comes from within ourselves. Happiness comes from our thoughts about life, about other people, and about ourselves. Happiness comes from our thoughts about circumstances, not the circumstances themselves. Imagine you're driving down a highway and someone cuts you off, forcing you to jam on the brakes. Has this ever happened to anyone? If it hasn't happened to you, go drive in Chicago. It will happen. I guarantee it. Now, when this happens, you could become angry. Reasonable. Or you could be thankful that you were able to avoid this accident. Your attitude is up to you. It is not up to the person who cuts you off. I learned this from a fascinating book, Man's Search for Meaning. This book changed my life. This book was by Dr. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychiatrist who spent more than 3 years in Jewish concentration camps as a prisoner. Even under these most deplorable conditions imaginable, some prisoners were able to choose their attitude. These prisoners were even able to encourage their fellow prisoners. They were able to do this because they found a meaning to life. They realized that each of us is created by God Himself. That each of us is unique in the universe. Each of us is created for a special purpose. A purpose only you can fulfill. Your purpose may be to suffer. Your unique opportunity may be the way you bear your suffering. When you realize that you are created for a special purpose by God Himself, you will have the power to choose your attitude under any set of circumstances. Let your choice be happiness. And
Wasn't that a great contest? Besides the incredible talent of the speakers, the two things that I like is, number one, you learn about the speakers, which we did tonight, and number two, you come away educated. And I think we did both tonight in a major way. So I congratulate all of our speakers, and I would not have wanted to be a judge. However, the judges who were serving have spoken, and we are here to present the awards. So with no further ado, again, the first place winner will represent the district at the International Speech Contest. If the first place winner cannot go, the second place alternate would go, and so on. So, starting with third place and going to first place, winning third place in the 2013 District 8 International Speech Contest, Valerie Reich. Second place in the 2013 District 8 International Speech Contest, David Evans.
thank you.
First place, the 2013 District 8 International Speech Contest, representing District 8 at the International Conference, will be, having those drum rolls, Matthew Burrows.